Ms. Robbie, can we start the meeting?
Roll call for the City Council meeting of May 7th at 9 a.m. Mr. Witherspoon, he is absent today. Mr. Brennan, Mrs. Saran-Kunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mirsky, Mr. Winarski. We have East High School Junior ROTC here this morning to present the colors.
We'll stand.
We'll now have a moment of silent meditation and then the Pledge of Allegiance.
Mr. President, ask that we remember all those in our community that are less fortunate than we are, those that have lost loved ones since the last time we were in these chambers. And we also ask our God and Creator to give us the wisdom and the proper information to make the best decisions for the citizens of the city of Erie.
Pledge allegiance.
I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order. Arms. Oath. Right face. Forward. March.
A motion to accept the minutes from the meeting of April 16th, 2014, and bills for payment on May 9th and 16, 2014. Mrs. Saran-Kunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mirsky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Brennan.
Request for repository sales. I didn't see any on the agenda today, but are there any requests for repository sales? Any requests for repository sales? Since I do not hear any today, we will have citizens to be heard. There is on the agenda, we had 3 individuals looking to speak. Is Bishop Dwayne Brock here?
Good morning.
Bishop, if we could have your address, please.
1129 Pennsylvania Avenue, Victory Christian Center.
Thank you.
Bishop Dwayne Brock. Mr. President and members of council, good morning once again. Certainly, you know that we have been inundated with a collage of gun violence, of shootings, and a consistent rise in aggravated activity. It is frequent and it is even escalating. Summertime is not yet upon us. My fear is that it has been and it is so frequent that it has become normal behavior, expected behavior, and accepted behavior, and by those of us who know better, it has become apathetic behavior. Mr. President and members of the council, have we lost our sensitivity to this emergency situation in the urban community. Mr. President, Mr. Jones, you well know that Mel Witherspoon, who is not here today, has championed the cause for young people, summer jobs, the neighborhood centers, the basketball league, Bay City Football League, the Walking in Black History, for well over 30 years in our community. He has demonstrated exceptional leadership. And I'm asking for him, I'm asking for you, Mr. Jones, and all members of City Council to revisit the city's budget, diverting some, I underscore the word some, of its monies earmarked for community policing and put it towards the summer job program and the economic stimulus for the African American community. Community policing is a necessity, but so are the aforementioned programs that are designed to prevent the need for community policing. Mr. President, members of council, I urgently ask for the diversion of some funds, and I await your response. Thank you very kindly.
Thank you, Mr. Brock. Thank you, Mr. Brock. Is Mr. Gary Horton here to speak on the agenda?
Good morning. Gary Horton, 2046 East 19th Street, Quality of Life Learning Center. Youth unemployment is an urgent problem that needs addressed today in order to combat poverty for tomorrow. Many teens within our community face difficulties in obtaining employment. Young people ages 16 to 24 in Pennsylvania account for 25% of the unemployed. They are also disproportionately affected by poverty. A 2010 GCAT community assessment showed that 1 out of 5 children under the age of 18 are impoverished in Erie County, and 1 out of 3 children under the age of 18 in the city of Erie are impoverished. An astounding 72.4% of African American children under the age of 5 are poor. 22.1% of white children are poor, and 36.5% of Hispanic children are poor. A disparity exists between those in rural areas and urban areas within suburban teens in Erie County. Many low-income teens are competing with adults for low-wage jobs that teens have traditionally held. This disparity of opportunity causes restlessness, leads some teens to adopt antisocial behavior and engage in illicit activities. Teens in poor and low-income neighborhoods are struggling for direction and positive opportunities to keep them safe and on track. Constructive activities such as a summer employment program provide a safe alternative to being on the streets, where teens have little supervision during summer months and are at risk for using drugs. A summer job would provide a means of income for low-income youth and also provide soft skills training. There are hundreds of unemployed youth who transition into adulthood each year without ever having secured employment. A summer job is a learning opportunity, as everyone must be taught how to work. It presents an opportunity to teach soft skills, instills financial values, and promote pro-social behaviors. There is a great potential for this program to have a long-term effect on teens within Erie County and lay the foundation for our teens to become productive and employable adults within the near future. This program represents a preventive approach to solving crime through attacking one of the root causes of crime, poverty and unemployment. It is time to invest in our youth, as they will prove to be one of our greatest regional assets. I'm going to present to you a copy of a program that County Councilman Andre Horton, myself, and Bishop Brock have developed with the input of GCAC, the Y, Career Link, the 3 neighborhood centers, and a number of MCRC, the Erie School Board, and a number of other agencies and organizations. It's only meant to be a model. We are proposing that we employ 700 youth for the summer, 500 inner city youth, 200 county youth. They will work on an average of 5 or 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, 30 hours a week, over a 6-week period. It will cost between $800,000 and $1 million. We're asking the city of Erie to put into this program. We've been to the county, we've been to the gaming revenue, we've been to Erie Community Foundation, and already there's a widespread agreement on a pilot program to employ anywhere between 100 and 150 youth in Erie County. We know that is not nearly enough. But if that's the area of support from the private sector, we're employing the public sector to invest in that also. So I concur with Bishop Dwayne Brock that we certainly need the police. A lot of the violence that's occurring in our community is not done by 14 to 18-year-olds. You're going to compound when school is out. What are these kids going to do? What are parents going to do who want their children to be involved in constructive activity while they are at work? And so we're asking the city to share some of the community development, community policing dollars, to have more than just a police or a criminal justice approach only to fighting crime in our community, and give our young people a chance to be gainfully employed in our community this summer. Thank you, and I'll present the copy of the outline that we created. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harden. Is Randy Barnes here? He is on the list for citizens to be heard today. Randy Barnes. Randy Barnes. Are any other citizens here to be heard today?
Good morning. My name is Julia Calipo, and I reside at 4017 Liberty Street here in Erie. You can call me at 454-0736, 454-0736. I'm here today about a family that has lived with no water since February 13th. They are located at 3313 Post Avenue, and it is the Caputo Ford family, Jacqueline Caputo and the child Marlena Ford. Since that time, the minor has basically wandered the streets. She goes wherever she can get a shower, wherever she can get food, wherever she can sleep. It's obviously a health and safety issue. It is illegal in the city of Erie for you to habitat a residence without water. There are other underlying issues that even if the water was restored would make this home unsafe in many ways. The Office of Children and Youth Services is neglecting to do their duty. They have been involved, and they have been making this child suffer in the situation she is in. They could have put her in foster care. They could have had the water turned on. They could have made the mother take classes for parenting so she could learn how to not abuse the child. We have $100 million every year that comes into Erie County for the Office of Children and Youth Services. There is no reason for them to throw this 13-year-old minor, Marlena, under the bus and to tell her that she doesn't matter. And I'm here to say that Marlena Ford does matter, that I have known her for a limited amount of time, but I have spoken to many people and I've done my research, and I very much care and am compassionate to her plight. I filed for guardianship of her on April 28th before Judge Brabender, and I was denied my emergency relief, even though this child is wandering the streets and is in imminent danger. She is in danger for kidnapping, she is in danger for being exploited in some way. And after that time, I emailed every politician in the city and county of Erie. I also Facebooked every politician in the city and county of Erie, and no one has had the decency to respond to me or to protect this child. I actually have a group on Facebook. It's called Save Marlena Ford. You can please visit the page. You will see statements and documented things that I have in regards to my fighting for this child and fighting for her dignity. I actually went and visited the mother, Jackie, and I asked her for guardianship. I said, please sign her over to me so I may take care of her and love her. She stated that if she loses Marlena, she loses her check and she will be homeless. Now, my question to you is, since when did children become nothing more than a welfare benefit? Since when are children nothing more than food stamps? This child is wandering the streets. She's going where she can to get clothing and the things that she needs. And her mother's basically saying, well, if I lose her, I lose my income. And that's disgusting. That's inherently disgusting. And it's further disgusting that OCY has not done anything about the situation. I have called repeatedly to the OCY office. I have called the statewide OCY number, also the Northwest region down in Pittsburgh. I have talked to Supervisor Leon McCormick, and I also spoke to the caseworker, Nico Lindsay. When I spoke to Nico Lindsay last week, she was very verbally aggressive and abusive towards me. She criticized me for going to Facebook to publicize the story, and I stated to her simply that if OCY had done their job, I wouldn't have to beg Facebook and the public and politicians to help me to make this child safe. And I let her know that I will go to no ends to make sure that this child is preserved. At that time, she said that she was going to be in court, that she was going to speak against me. And I don't understand the reason that she would say that. Since then, Nico Lindsay from OCY has gone through the city calling me crazy and unfit, and I have had to file criminal charges against her. And tomorrow is the day. Tomorrow is the day that I go to see Judge Kelly with my attorney. And when I go there, I will be presenting my case for guardianship of Marlena. And what I'm asking the politicians of the city to do is to go home and appreciate that you have water and that you have food and you have a bed to lay in, because this 13-year-old does not. I'm asking you to pick up your phone and call your county executive to see about budget cuts to the Office of Children and Youth Services. They are obligated to do their job for every individual in this city, not just whoever they pick and choose.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Your time is up.
Okay,
Thank
and
you.
I wanted to state also just one last sentence, that I have my background checks and my child line clearances, and I have an impeccable character here in the city of Erie, and that I am not crazy, but that I will go to no ends to help this child. And I think that everyone on that stage should take the time to pick up the phone to find out why Marlena Ford is not being taken care of tonight. Thank you so much, and have a great day.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell.
Good morning, members of City Council. My name is Steve Simulcare. I reside at 926 Wallace Street. I'm here to support this very, very crucial invested interest in the initiative for employment for our youth. As I reflect back as a young man myself growing up in New York City, that was one of the very first opportunities that I had to begin to practice some of the educational things that I was learning, which was employment. And through the years, of course, and coming to Erie, Pennsylvania, those programs existed as they did across the nation. And perhaps about 10 years ago, for whatever reason, besides the fact that it was no longer funded, employment for youth became something of the past, a real major mistake. You correlate that with the statistics and the research that's been presented here over and over and over by one group from the Mercyhurst Civic Institute, but the real statistic and the real research is the reality that exists. We got to remember that our youth are also citizens, not just their parents. They live in communities, and many of them are doing very, very well academically. We need to coincide that with giving them a further investing boost in their morality, in their integrity, in their work ethic, and they deserve that opportunity. And that cannot happen without the hearts of folks who are in position to make that happen, which is you and other agencies that have been elected by citizens of Erie and Erie County to prioritize things that are very, very important. And if we don't continue to pay attention to our youth needs, we'll keep focusing on the issues of our violence. That is symptomatic of the real issues, but yet is very prevalent because it hurts everybody. We all suffer when someone else is hurt. Every family and every citizen, on behalf of the privilege that I have to now be the chairperson of the Neighborhood Watch Council, and this is one of the most important things that we can do to invest in improving our safety. I agree with law enforcement necessity, but it must be reciprocal in terms of other investment, because it's not just about law enforcement. That's only one entity, which is very vital. And we must look at the other, vital issues that are very, very relative to how can we engage folks in doing the right thing by giving them right choices and opportunities. Everybody deserves that. And we're just asking that you seriously take this initiative to heart. Pray when you have the opportunity to pray, and come together as a collective group and make the right decision. Make a stand, just like you do with all the other issues that are important to you and your constituency. But let our citizens of young people become a part of that very, very important and vital enhancement in their life. Let them know that you stand for and with them with this opportunity. We at the Erie Neighborhood Watch Council, certainly we do what we can. We had young people helping us out early in the morning 2 weeks ago to clean our Eastside Eagles Neighborhood Watch Group. They got up and they could have been employed. They didn't get a dime. I did take some of the youth to get some ice cream, just to show a friendly good deed that I appreciated with gratitude, the fact that they were up doing something constructive. But they also continue to talk to me about, I want to be employed, Mr. Simulcare. And I just believe that that is something that needs to be not just a dream, but a reality. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Paul Musey, and I just want to let you know that I was down by the library. If you could, I had them do a picture on the computer that they ought to put a sidewalk from State Street from down there alongside there when you go down the library, so you don't have to ride in the streets, because a lot of times I rode in the street and I got a bus coming behind me and that, and he's right almost on top of me and I had to move over and that. But this time I rode on the sidewalk part last week, and it's really unleveled. I thought I was almost going to ditch myself. But, it looks like they got hard gravel or something. It packed in there. I think they either should put a piece of sidewalk in there. I have a picture of it right here. I had library by satellite take a picture of it and that. I think they should at least put a piece of sidewalk wide enough on both sides, because even they got people walking on the grass and that. If they don't do the ones on the north side, they should do it on the right side going down. And another thing I want to mention it to you, that the trolleys having trouble with their transmissions on their buses. They've been having a lot of problems. So I told the guy, the bus driver on the trolley, that I'll mention the city councilman about it, to get them to fix them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Morning. My name is Andy McCowan. I live at 4840 Hartley Lane. Back in 2012, I had some vehicles towed from in front of my house where I lived at 703 Cockwell Boulevard. What had happened was they were paving my street, and I was out of town, and they didn't hang the signs up within enough time for me to move my vehicles. I was told if I had an issue with what had happened that I could file for a hearing with the towing committee in Erie. I was told to do this by applying through Sergeant Erdley down at the police department, which I did. I wrote a letter to him explaining what had happened. He granted me a towing committee hearing. He said we would just have to get that scheduled with the right people. I think a few of the people on that committee are council members. This was back in February of 2013 that I applied and was told I would get a hearing. And I tried to reach Mr. Erdley several dozen times through email, through phone calls. He would never return my calls. And eventually I went to his supervisor, Captain Wassel. Captain Wassel referred me to Mr. Jones. And that was probably about 2 months ago, back in February. And I have heard nothing since. Left several messages. It seems like a real minor issue compared to some of the things brought up to you here. And I feel a little bit embarrassed to bring it up in front of the council like this. But I have had no answer for going on almost 1.5 years now. So that's all I have to say. I'd just like to know when I could get an answer on when that committee can get together. Probably be a 15-minute thing.
Okay. Can you leave your phone number? I have your address here, name, just with our secretary, just to make sure we get it nailed down and have it all, and we'll get back to you. Thank you. Are there any other citizens to be heard?
Yes, good morning, council and public. My name is Bonnie Markley. I'm here again to have the pleasure of speaking with you. I'm 1020 Cascade Street, 16502. And my initial reason for coming here was to ask you why and who put the Thomas C. Hoffman hub into place at 12th and Green Garden. How much were the construction costs? Who proposed it? And why is it there? Because it's never used. I've come by so many times and there's not one vehicle in the area. So that's a waste of money that could go for other things. My second bullet point here is the Treasurer's Office. I graciously went in on April 30th about 3:50 p.m. to pay my taxes to get the 2% discount, with the stupid logic that, according to the Treasurer's Office personnel, we will not deposit this probably for at least a few days to a week. Well, my Social Security was going to go in Friday morning, May 2nd. I went to the bank on May 2nd, Friday in the morning, and found out that apparently Treasurer's Office did overtime or worked later because they made the deposit after 4:30 on Wednesday, which would have cost me about $100 in bounced checks, but I'm one of the smart financiers on social services. I have banking protection, debit, whatever, and I've never used it, but thanks to City Council or City Treasurer's Office, I had to use it. Saved me $100. But when it comes to government protocol, you don't think, because they don't think. I mean, I'm just not going to think about them trusting them anymore. My other question is, yesterday I heard some interesting information regarding a building at 1000 block on West 10th Street. The approximate address would be 1013, 1015 West 10th Street. It's on the south side of the street. Now, obviously, code enforcement do not make regular rounds unless they're given direction to go to a specific place. That's funny too, isn't it there? But there's a huge, I'd say at least 3,000 to 5,000 square feet in diameter, this edifice. It's about a 150-year-old garage, and it backs my property and a few other properties, and my neighbor told me that it's being torn down, and it's been there forever. I took the time to walk down there yesterday. It's partially being demolished on the south wall. It was an old horse barn back in the 1880s. Being demolished, I saw no permit. And I understand the gentleman who is by the name, and I'll give it to you, and it could be correct, but per one of the tenants, the owner of the property is Brian Zewe, Z-E-W-E, and he's with Lake Erie Rentals. And I think that's a violation because he does have a sign, anybody parking here after May 2nd will be towed. So therefore, it's a commercial venture in a residential area. He put up a little sign, handwritten, and he's going to tow people who he gets money from for parking in the edifice. And now he's tearing it down, which is going to damage my property. It has a potential damage. And I was on the phone, trying to get on the phone with several offices at City Hall yesterday, and geez, between 3:30 and 4 o'clock, couldn't find anybody in. I did find one or two. I left, no, not in, but answer machines answered. And code enforcement, and I was asking what their hours are. It rang, and for 3-4 minutes, and it didn't click over to an answering machine, so I hung up. I'll see them today. Now, what I want to know is, why can someone tear down an old structure and not have a permit, and why would he tear it down? Just because he's the owner? I'd like that investigated. And another compliment to the City Streets Department for Monday. Monday's the odd side of the day. Odd streets on my street, Monday, very nicely. They're supposed to clean the east side of the street. Well, Monday, obviously, is the west side. We get cleaned on Wednesday this morning. So I did not move my vehicle. But the street sweeper cleaned and had to avoid my vehicle. But thank you for your time. Tell them to get their hours, their days, and their thoughts together before they start sweeping the wrong street. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, ma'am.
You bet.
Any other citizens to be heard?
Good morning, Council. My name is Mike Dollar. My property is 19th and Reed. I want to echo what Bishop Brock and Mr. Horton said. Our kids are important. If you're a parent, your kid's supposed to be important to you. If you don't do nothing for those kids, you're going to regret it. You're going to regret it. And I'm not threatening you. I'm promising you that you're going to have problems. Those kids, they don't mind working. They want a job. They want some money in their pockets. They don't want to go out there stealing. Those are our future leaders. Don't you want your kids to do better than you? You're doing good up there. Don't you want your kids to do better? Maybe a mayor or a lawyer or something. You don't want them out there selling drugs. I don't think you do. Our kids are important, whether you think they are or not. You better do something for those kids. Those kids are not responsible for taking the wrong road. They need to be led. They can't raise themselves. They can't reach in there and pull money down. Give them a little job. We are taxpayers. What are you doing with our money? I'm looking at this agenda you got here. You're spending it like you're reaching up in the air getting it. Spend some of that money on our kids, or you're going to regret it. Some ain't got here yet. It's a shame. It's a shame the way the school board is treating that young man up there. Them kids he got them out to public school. They were like that when they went there. He was trying to improve them. You don't kick a man when he's down. You reach down and help him up if you have to knock him down again. Y'all should be ashamed. You should go against what they're doing up there. They didn't want him up there in the first place. He's a good young man. I believe in putting credit where credit is due. Anybody know that young man knows he's a good young man. He ain't dumb. He ain't stole no money. But I didn't come down here to talk about that, though. Let's get some jobs out there for our kids. Y'all get money for everything. Them foreigners coming here, when you go to the market, they got a stack of cards and 2 carton load of food back there. When our soldiers come back in, they're kicked in the butt. They should be treated like kings and queens. We'll find out what's going to happen, because you don't know what tomorrow may bring. See, if you got to do good today in order to look forward to tomorrow. Treat people the way you want to be treated. You're supposed to be our leaders. If you're going to lead, if you want to be a leader, lead. Don't follow. You're supposed to be the leaders. You take this agenda y'all put out. Y'all don't understand it. I doubt if you do, because I sure don't. You should have, this is for this, and this is coming out of this funds, this fund. You don't have that. All of this here is Greek to me and to a lot of you. I don't know. Secrecy is a bad thing. You should have town hall meetings. Ask the people what they want. What do you think we should do? Because you're not a brainstorm. You don't know everything. If you knew everything, you wouldn't be up there. You'd be rich somewhere counting your money. Y'all, I don't know. And you're putting all this money in the police department. Put some schooling in there for them so they'll know how to treat people. Tell them to go out there and treat people like they are somebody, like they want to be treated. People come to me and tell me how they're treated. And I can understand it. At first I didn't, but now I do. We're paying to be mistreated. We're paying. All poor people shouldn't be taxpayers. They shouldn't have to pay no taxes if you're poor. Gas on the moon up there. Gas steady going up. And ain't nobody saying nothing. And we give the oil companies billions of dollars a year for exploration. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Any other citizens to be heard?
Good morning, Council. My name's Willard McAdory. I stay at 448 East 15th Street. We're back here again in the same place we was last year, this same time, asking for the same thing. Our children need jobs. Now, it was supposed to have been something in place from last year to this year that we would ensure that we made sure that the kids had employment this summer. I don't see it. You know, like, I don't come down here to be begging you. I ain't gonna do that. I ain't gonna never do that. But I just want to make you aware, you know, just like the man upstairs. He been in there 8 years, going on 12. He ain't did nothing for the black community yet. He ain't showed up yet. You know, and council, you know, accommodate him on every whim that he come down here with, what he need, he get it. But have he ever came down here in reference to about the black community? No. Bishop Brock, Gary Horton, Steve Simmercare came in this morning and expressed the desire of what's going on in our neighborhood. This is what's going on out there in our neighborhood. And the sad part about it is, all year, the winter months, we've been hearing people getting together trying to get up a plan to do something for them kids out there in them streets. But the sad part about all that is, why do white folks always think they know what's best for us? You don't. And you don't ask us You go and put up a plan all through the winter to come back in the summer and say, well, this is what we got and this is what's best for you. You don't know what's best for me. And you get certain individuals to go in there and say, well, this is what the black community, no. Why don't they ever go out there on the street and stop some of them young people that's walking them down the street, say, could I speak to you for a minute? What is going on out here? What do y'all need? Those are the people you need to be talking to. The people that are sitting in them rooms and making them decisions, they got jobs. They got jobs, and whatever they decide, it's cool, because they're going home and eat. And them same people out there in the street is still starving. Y'all better pay attention to Bishop and G and them. Y'all better pay attention to what's going on. You know, and I know people that, like they said, well, what y'all gonna do? Whatever we do, it doesn't matter. We're gonna come up on the losing stick of it anyhow, regardless of how it go. But the point is, we know that there's something that needs to be done. And y'all got the power to do it. Then to again, you look, you know, you say, well, we don't have no money. That unappropriated money that you go and find, maybe $2 million to get a project off the ground, because the man upstairs called down and said, we got to have this money, and y'all go get it, but you ain't got no money? Come on now, we know you got money. And what is it to do with the swift of the pen to say, okay, we're going to give y'all $2 million this summer and we're going to hook this up? What? You think that would be a bad idea? And I'm quite sure that we can get 4,000 or 5,000 kids this summer to make Erie look like it should look. Cut the grass, pick up all the paper everywhere, all over the city, the parks. You got enough, well, you know the city got enough properties that's not being paid on taxes, the grass ain't been cut. We know we got a lot of that. If you need the citizens to take care, all you got to do is pay them. What's so difficult about that? And you always complaining about, well, why the kids do this? Why the kids, you know why they do it, they ain't got no money. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McAdory. Are there any other citizens to be heard? Any other citizens to be heard? Mr. Roby, can we continue with the rest of the meeting?
Ordinances for first reading. Introduced by Mr. Mursky and seconded by Mr. Brennan. An ordinance appropriating the sum of $13,619.31 from unappropriated and unanticipated revenue and providing for the expenditure thereof. Fire Equipment Reimbursement Program. Mrs. Rancunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Brennan. That council file ordinance number 15872, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by City Council. Yeas 7, nays 0.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to move the balance of the agenda.
Do we have a second? Do we have any separations? Any separations? I would like to separate number 2 and also number 2 of the new business and number 6 of the new business also.
Mr. President, I'd like to separate only 7 and number 8 only because I have a immediate family member that works for one of the 2 towing contractors part-time, and I would feel it's in my best interest or without any to not vote on that, to abstain from that one, both 7 and 8.
Thank you. So 2 of new business, 2, 6, 7, and 8.
Okay, voting on the moving of the balance of the agenda. Mrs. Rancunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Brennan. Resolution sponsored by Mr. Brennan, seconded by Mr. Kwiatkowski. A resolution respectfully requesting the city solicitor to research the feasibility of adding a demolition delay ordinance to govern the application for demolition permit regulations. The proposed demolition delay ordinance shall pertain to any building that is located in a National Register of Historic Places, Historic District, or any National Register of Historic Places individually listed building. The ordinance shall include a 30-day waiting period following the submittal of an application for demolition permit and a notification process to the following organizations: the Erie County Historical Society, Preservation Erie, and the nearest neighborhood association and/or neighborhood watch. The city solicitor shall report his findings thereon back to City Council.
Mr. Roby, I wanted to say a few words about that one before we vote. For this ordinance, I propose this ordinance for several reasons, but it's really to the heart of it is really promoting the cultural, economic, education, and general welfare of the city of Erie. The ordinance will establish a process whereby the owners of buildings with significant historical characteristics will be encouraged to preserve, rehabilitate, reuse these structures. The waiting period will provide time for all interested parties to consider and put forth alternatives for demolition. Why does the city need to pursue preserving historic buildings? By preserving historic buildings that contribute to the cultural, economic, and social history of the city of Erie, we are safeguarding the community's heritage, stabilizing and improving property values, fostering civic beauty, and strengthening the local economy. Preservation and the protection of significant buildings, streetscapes, and neighborhoods benefit the public by promoting the unique characteristics of Erie. As quoted by Ed McMahon of the Urban Land Institute, who was just in Erie last week, I wanted to read a quote that he had that really was effective. A community's visual appeal drives economic prosperity. While change is inevitable, the destruction of the community's unique character and identity is not. Communities can grow without destroying the things that people love. No one wants to stop progress, of course, but when significant buildings and neighborhoods are threatened that add character to our city, we need to do what we can to preserve these assets as much as we can. Thank you.
Okay, voting on the resolution, Mrs. Haran-Kunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Brennan. Resolution sponsored by Mr. Jones and seconded by Mr. Kwiatkowski, that the Enterprise Zone Loan Review Committee approval of the following loan be formally ratified for Etwine Service Station in the amount of $50,000 on a term of 7 years with a fee of $250. These funds have been made available through the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Enterprise Zone Program and the Enterprise Zone Revolving Loan Fund and loan repayments. The loan will be charged against account number 310-0000-0000-1007. The interest rate is fixed at 4.5% per annum. A one-time loan processing fee based on 0.5% of the amount financed will be assessed to the client. The City Solicitor's Office will assist with the preparation of the loan documents for this transaction. City Council further directs that the proper city officials are authorized to sign the necessary documents and agreements effectuating same.
Ms. Roby, I'll be abstaining on this vote of this resolution to avoid any conflict of interest appearance, since Develop Erie is my employer and is involved in helping to finance this project along with the City of Erie.
Okay. Mrs. Haran-Kunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski. Resolution sponsored by Mr. Kwiatkowski and seconded by Mrs. Haran-Kunso, that the proper city officials are hereby authorized and directed to execute a towing agreement with McMillan's Towing and Transport, Inc. of 513-519 East 18th Street, Erie, PA 16503. The term of the towing agreement will commence on the date of approval by City Council for a 4 years with a provision for a 1-year extension. McMillan's Towing and Transport, Inc. will provide city towing services for the Bureau of Police of the City of Erie per codified ordinance 527.04. Mr. Brennan, Mrs. Rankunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski
Abstain, please.
Okay. Resolution by Mr. Kwiatkowski and seconded by Mrs. Rankunso that the proper city officials are hereby authorized and directed to execute a towing agreement with Eddie's Collectibles of 1039 West 18th Street, Erie, PA 16502. The term of the towing agreement will commence on the date of approval by City Council for a term of 4 years with a provision for a 1-year extension. Eddie's Collectibles will provide city towing services for the Bureau of Police of the City of Erie per codified ordinance 725.04. Mrs. Rankunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski,
Abstain, please.
and Mr. Brennan. That'll take us to committee reports, Mr. President.
Thank you, Rose. Can we start with Ms. Kunso today?
Thank you, Mr. Brennan. You're doing a good job as acting president today. I just wanted to remind the council members that we'll be meeting in Finance Committee at the conclusion of our council meeting to continue our discussion and our implementation of plans to deal with the issue of the refuse delinquent bills. We did have a resolution on our agenda today to start the ball rolling on the City Water Authority and the city officials working together to change the billing practices so that we can combine the bills to improve collection of the delinquent garbage accounts. So that has passed, and we'll continue to discuss that with Mr. Wojtek from the Water Authority on how we can make that happen at our meeting today. That's all I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kwiatkowski?
Yes, I attended the East Side Neighborhood Watch meeting, and it was a very good meeting. We're winding down for the year as we normally do during the summer, and just a reminder to council that some of the problems are still there, and we hope that you'll be diligent, all of us as members, and remember the neighbors in that area. I want to talk about the ordinance, the resolution today about the ordinance on demolition. As a young man who grew up in this town in the 60s, I saw what redevelopment did at that time to many of the old buildings, and I'm glad to second Mr. Brennan's resolution, because I think too often in this town we tear down old buildings rather than renovate them. If you go to Europe or you go to other cities in the United States, many of the old buildings are up. We tore down probably a minimum of 5 to 6 movie theaters in this town that were capable of having stage productions on them. We tore down many old buildings. We almost tore down a high school. That was stopped, the academy. So I think the 30-day waiting period gives everybody a chance to cool down, so we don't have any more middle-of-the-night demolitions that like has appeared in this town. I think we need to find ways of doing things, and in the long run, it gives everybody a cooling down period. And I'd also like to explain to the public, there's a lot of confusion a lot of times what we do up here, and if any of the people that have questions on how the money is delegated, or I'd be glad to talk to anybody on my own time. I spent 12 years here as a controller, so I understand a little bit of what's going on, and so do the council members. It may not seem it to the public, but money is just some funds cannot be disseminated in ways that the public thinks they can be. When we have funds for loans, those are specifically for loans and cannot be used for other things. Just like liquid fuel money is used for liquid fuel, is used for road projects and lighting. So I think, if you have questions, feel free to call me. I'll meet with any one of you privately on my own time. And this council does, come budget time, this will be a time when we look at these issues.
Thank you, Mr. Kwiatkowski. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. Not much of a report in relation to authority or liaison assignments. I did want to just comment, obviously, we have some very difficult and challenging issues in our community socially, issues of violence, and I like the fact that someone made some clarity that a lot of the violence we're experiencing are not our kids that are 18 and under. These are a lot of these individuals are adults, albeit young people, but are very much adults. And so many of our children, most of our children in our community absolutely have needs, but are not the ones that we're reading about in the paper or listening about on the news. With that said, I am obviously, if anyone's been watching council meetings or been involved in the community at all, knows that I'm 100% in supportive of employing our young people, not just through the summer, but the summer as a means of seizing that opportunity to do training and to get work experience. I worked last year on a very small but very effective scale to start off a pilot doing something very similar to what has been expanded through this group and these individuals that were here today. So I support the effort 100%. For the sake of any questions, I was very strategic and very purposeful and down and pulling back a little bit on the effort that I started with members of this council and community members last year because of the efforts of Mr. Horton, Bishop Brock, and those that are in their collaboration. I didn't ever want it to look as if there's conflict or there's silos within the same vision of employing and empowering our young people. And so I'm supportive of that. This is in no way means that, there's multiple things going on in conflict. Again, I'm just supporting their effort. What I will say, in doing this last year, working with folks last year, the 6 weeks of employment are invaluable on a lot of different levels. But what I learned is that after that 6 weeks is over, the needs for these young people do not end, they do not cease. And what we find, and we did the pre and post work with young people last year, some albeit a little less formal in some ways. But what we found out is that when they got the check, some of them were buying sneakers, cool stuff, but some of them were helping to pay bills in the house. Some of them were, buying food, buying things for high school next year, etc. So this is not a joke, like kids just need money for summer. They need money year-round. They need money and opportunities for employment year-round. And so the effort should be to start maybe in the summer, but then to find means of employment year-round. Also, what we found is that there are so many other needs besides money. The young people that we've been working with and just have continued to work with, they have other social challenges. A young lady called and was homeless. She worked in a program, did a really good job last summer, and had drama in her home, and mom kicked her out. Okay, so the 6 weeks of work that she did was great, but there's a whole lot of other stuff that our young people need besides just or in addition to employment opportunities. So that's where my effort is, I think, being focused on more now, because there's wonderful collaboration that is going to do the brass and the hard work of fundraising and working to empower through the employment process. But I think there's a back end side to that too that needs to be the follow-up. And so I'm 100% all in with doing that as well. Finally, in relation to this topic, we had a loan that we passed, we're supportive of today, and one of the processes and the questions, and I'll finish here in just a moment, was the person or the individuals who were looking for the loan and support. What did they bring to the table as far as collateral and upfront investment? Although we're looking for grants and support financially, I think that it's easy for us to say that we don't have money and I'll just be very direct, in the African American community. And in a lot of ways we don't, but we have money for what we want. And we have money and we value and put our money where we think it's important to put it. And I'm not criticizing what that is or commenting on what that is. we have money. And so if it's $20,000 that we can find within the black community, within this collaboration of churches and organizations to bring to the table to say, listen, match this funder, not just give me, this is what we were able to do, this is the best we could do, can you match this 3 to 1, 4 to 1, 5 to 1, 2 to 1? And I think it shows that we're bringing a lot of investment to the table as well, and it puts us not in a position of just ask, but putting in a position of match and more of a position of power. And so I'm also all in with supporting that as well. Mr. President, I appreciate the extra time.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Winarski.
Thank you, Mr. President. I got a few notes I didn't organize in any particular way, but I did attend the Transit Authority meeting this past week. I'd like to congratulate Mr. Mike Tan, who's our new Executive Director of the Transit Authority. The interim label has been removed, and the board has recognized in the last 5 months, his first 5 months in that position, that he has done a great job and is bringing the Transit Authority forward. A few topics from the meeting. Phase 1 of the project over there on 14th and Parade, everything is on schedule for the June 15th completion of Phase 1, where Phase 2 will kick in. Mr. Tan did mention he would like to meet with City Council biannually or annually just to update Council as a whole and to keep the transparency between Council and the Transit Authority open. Unfortunately, due to Act 89 that was passed by the state, fees or fares are going to go up come fall in the to ride a bus. First increase in 16 years, roughly going to be 15 cents this year, and then 10 cents for the next 4 years. Due to the funding they get from the state, they do have to come to a state average, which is $1.65 per ride within the next 5 years. As per Mr. Brennan's inquiry, the transit will check into a possible shuttle service for the Erie Philharmonic. The main part of their season is during the winter, and with the other things happening downtown, parking tends to be an issue, and they're going to try to set up schedules, and that's where that hub on 12th in Lincoln will come into play, as well as Intermodal Center to help shuttle people that are going to the Warner access at a easier rate. Ms. Markley, regarding your question regarding the hub on 12th Street, talked to Mr. Tan on that, and within the next month or two, when the summer season picks up here, we're going to see a little more activity there where it is being utilized to its potential. He's working with different hospitals, Erie Insurance, to get people to use these park and rides or these hubs, and then he's going to use his shuttle service to get them downtown to help alleviate some of the parking issues downtown. On another issue that was mentioned personally, that I had a personal plan for the GAF property in my past campaign possibly, but please understand, at no time did I have a personal plan for this property. What I had stated numerous times is that I supported redevelopment of this property. But with that redevelopment, the properties that go on there, or the entities that go on there, are tax revenue properties. I had mixed feelings with the new hotel that's being built down there, but on the positive side, at least that hotel is not on the GAF property. It's on the Convention Authority property. That opens up a little more land on the GAF property for hopefully tax-abiding properties. Last thing we want on the GAF property is tax-exempt statutes. So for the record, to put it straight, I am for redevelopment down there. Do I have a personal plan or vision? Yeah, I have a vision that I want tax entity properties down on that property. I think I did have a few other notes here. We will ask Mr. President Witherspoon, I I think it's been a while since we met with our Police Chief Bowers. Maybe after our June morning meeting, we can have another update just with the common good of the police force, the issues that are going on with the guns and the crime. But we like to meet with them every 3 or 4 months, and I think we're due for that, so we'll check with Mr. Witherspoon on that. Please support your mail carriers. Annual food bank drive this Saturday. If you put something out by the mailboxes, non-perishable items, it'll help our community food bank. And last note, congratulate my goddaughter, Isabella Bruni, on her first communion this last Sunday. It's great to see her parents keep up that tradition to keep God and family in their lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Winarski. Mr. Mirsky.
Thank you, Mr. Brennan. Just a couple of things. I attended the Neighborhood Watch Council meeting, and I wanted to personally thank Steve Simmelcare and the officers of the Neighborhood Watch Council for the fine job that they're doing. They've really taken the organization and made it a cohesive unit. And I want to thank the Erie Police Department, not just for attending the meetings and working with the Neighborhood Watch, but also, and I said this at the meeting, the job that they do is a much different job than the job that they started in 15, 20 years ago with social media. Things have changed. People are taking their pictures. People are, it's harder to get intelligence because if you snitch, you are put on Facebook. And so the job that they're doing is a much more challenging job than the job that they had in the past, and I thank them for their efforts. I also attended with Councilman Kwiatkowski, the Mercyhurst Area Neighborhood Watch. One of the issues we're having up there is with parking, and especially after 4 p.m., and so that's something that we're going to work on with the parking authority. I understand the police are busy. That's not a priority for them, but it's an issue for the neighbors up there, and that's something that we need to address, especially as Mercyhurst expands. You know, when I went there in the 90s, there were half as many kids as there are now, and so as they grow, we have to adapt our policies with them. The Convention Center Authority met. Seawolves have started. Their attendance is well, considering the weather, and you know, when you're outside, it's always a weather-dependent activity. We're very pleased due to the renovations at the Erie Insurance Arena. They have a new contract with the Otters, and they wrote a letter of support for our RCAP funding for improvements to Jerry Ballpark. So we're waiting to hear from the state on that. From the Streets Department, paving has started, is in the contracts here. We have McCormick's, Mayer Brothers, and Russell Standards all received contracts for paving, in addition to our own crews that'll be out paving. And the potholes are still out there, but they're a call away from getting patched. So all you have to do is call 870-1340. Our crews have been trying to get ahead of the game. As soon as they get the call, they've been out. And I know the streets are bad. And I was actually speaking with somebody from the Mill Creek Streets Department, and he credited our Streets Department for being on top of it. As soon as the weather got nice, they got on the ball and started patching right away, and he was impressed with that. And finally, Parks and Rec, summer schedule will be coming out shortly, so make sure that you take a look there. Our summer Parks and Recreation program offers a full slate of activities from youth through senior citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mirsky. Ms. Stankiewicz, any report today?
I do not have any report.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Speck, any report
Just to
from
follow up
administration?
from Mr. Mirsky's comment, yes, the Summer Parks and Rec Guide is going to be coming out. We did go to print, so in the next couple of weeks, we hope to have a press conference and thank all of our community partners, the Erie Housing Authority, Highmark, Blue Cross Blue Shield, the YMCA. We couldn't do it without contributions from all of these great people. And that Parks and Rec Guide will be getting into the schools and going home with all of the students, so parents be on the lookout for that in the coming weeks. Zoo Parade is coming up on Saturday the 17th, so hopefully we'll have a beautiful day and line the streets and kick off the summer season with that. Just one last thing, we're getting into prom season, so remind all of our students and our children to be responsible and to continue all of the good habits that we've instilled in them through the next couple of weeks, and have a happy and safe prom season. Thank you.
Mr. President.
Yes, Mr.
Just
Murphy.
one more thing, and I was remiss in doing this, and I apologize. I wanted to thank the Colonel Russell and the East High Junior ROTC for coming today to present the colors. That ROTC program at East High is an example of leadership, youth leadership at its finest, and Colonel Russell does a fine job with those young men and women, and Jamelia Gibbs, who's their battalion commander, she's entering the Navy next year. She's a very, and all the kids that are in that program, they learn those discipline, dedication, and determination are the keys to success in life, and he does a great job with them. So I wanted to thank them for being here today with us. Those are city kids doing good things. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mursky. Mr. Carley, any report today?
No, I have no report.
You're all set.
I think I'm going to get grilled at our meeting afterwards, right?
Okay. Thank you. I did have a small report here I wanted to kind of go through, but I did want to thank everyone who came in to talk about the summer jobs program. I don't think there is a more important issue in this city than the issue you bring forward. We need to keep investing in our youth. Very important. Collaboration is key, and I know you've been reaching out to many other agencies that will hopefully help and come together. But the funding needs to come together. We need to work on the program and how this could work together, and I'm sure all the council supports all of your efforts. Also, I wanted to talk about a couple other minor things. I took part in the City of Erie Recycling Day. I was in line for about a half hour. I think the line went around the block twice. But the only reason I bring this up is I want to thank all the volunteers. There's probably about maybe 30, 40 volunteers that were there helping the city staff put this together. And I also want to congratulate the city staff for doing an excellent job given the conditions and the amount of people that showed up. I also attended a meeting that Senator Wiley hosted. He brought Bill Strickland to town. He's the CEO of the Manchester Bidwell Corporation. Mr. Strickland developed ideas for job training and education for people in Pittsburgh, where he lives. But the program gives people jobs and also hope for the future. The graduates often come back and mentor other kids, which of course is more important if you could grow your program and keep spreading out the word. Bill's working with the Erie team that was put together by Senator Wiley to hopefully bring this program together for Erie in the future. One of the points that most remember from this discussion is that people are affected by the spaces that they're in, the spaces that they inhabit in their environment. So if we provide them good spaces, if we provide them respect, I think it'll go a long, long way. And the last thing I had is I was involved in a meeting at Little Italy to discuss some of their future work going on there. They're going to be putting in the curbs and walkways soon. And also there's some new murals that are going up that'll really instill a lot of pride in that area, and they really talk about the history of where that neighborhood's come from. We're also looking at some traffic studies in the area, so I'm working with the traffic department in the city to just look at some possible alternatives for rerouting trucks if possible, or doing anything for the area. And that's it. Ms. Roby?
City Council adjourns at 10:17. Mr. Brennan, Mrs. Haran-Kunso, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski.
Thank you, Mr.